Hi, welcome to Family Dynamics with the Kilmons. I'm Catherine and
Liz, I'm here today.
I'm the matriarch,
And what's your name, Mom?
Mary.
Yes.
And I'm Ed. I'm one of the members of NAC.
And John's actually here too.
What? No one cares about me.
Yes, everybody
oh my
does.
God.
So out
Totally
of the
not true.
8 siblings, 4 of us are present, different ages represented.
Yeah, so basically this episode is the first episode we've had our mom come in, as she said,
Mother.
matriarch of the family. So for those of you who don't know, we were 8 siblings growing up, and we kind of wanted to talk to Mom about the dynamics of having 8 kids who were all very, very different. And what was that like?
So, Mom, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Just say your name and
I'm Mary. I don't even know how to describe myself. I have about 15 ways, I think. But when it comes to being a mom of this crew, I grew up in a family where my parents thought everybody should be treated the same, that was equitable and what they expected. And I grew up thinking, this is bogus.
doesn't work.
This, not at all.
Right.
And so even before these children were born, I knew different things about their personalities. For instance, I'll never forget thinking Rosemary was, who's not here today? And I'm not talking behind her back. I've told her this before. But I remember thinking it was twin boys having a fight in there because there was so much activity and strength. And then it came out just to be Rosemary, who turned out to be like twin boys.
Which was your 5th child, your 3rd daughter.
Yeah, so
Right.
I'll do a quick rundown of everybody. So oldest is James, then there was William, then myself, Catherine, then Liz,
Hello.
then Rosemary. That's the one she was just talking about, Rosemary. So that was number 5. Then Virginia, then Ed,
Hello.
and who is here, and John, who is also here, but apparently
The baby of the 8 children.
of the 8 children,
Yeah.
right?
And
Sorry.
that's a 20-year gap, right? Or about
18.
18 years?
Yeah, I think
18.
Okay.
James was 18 when John was born, right?
Yes, he
By
came.
2 days.
Yes, and because he was 18, he could be admitted to the labor room, and he told me that he wanted to come,
Oh, gosh.
and I thought, what? And I told his dad, and his dad thought that was quite weird, but in his typical fashion, he just didn't address the issue because then it would go away, which often was the truth. And then he asked James, what would you like to do for your 18th birthday? And James said, well, I'd like to go to dinner at this place in Encino with William. And then afterwards, I'd like for us all to go to the orientation program at the hospital for the birth of babies.
So James has been a super fun, not serious person.
Like,
for
I
a
mean,
long
what?
time.
That sounds very James. I had forgotten. So you're saying that James was present at John's birth because he was old enough. He was 18, 2 days before he had turned 18.
I mean, technically, he was present for all the first and the last birth. I mean, because he was there for his own.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
no.
okay. He was observing it, really.
When I say present,
Different angle, Ed. Different angle.
I mean in the room.
Yeah.
So,
So was William.
Wait,
oh,
what?
what?
That's right, because he came to dinner with us. And
So
that
wait,
was planned on
I
purpose.
cannot even imagine. So you had 2 basically teenage boys. Okay, wait a minute. And you gave a natural birth, right?
Yes.
I mean, do they stand? I'm just gonna get a little graphic. Did they stand beside you, or did they have like a
oh,
front
no,
row
they
seat?
had a front row
What?
seat.
Mom? No,
And
no.
he said, well, I've already seen it. We had, videos.
Seen what? Your vagina?
No. Birth.
Birth video.
whatever.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
birth
sorry.
videos.
And
Sorry.
technically, yes, he had. We all came out of there.
Well,
Don't
no,
remember it.
memory of
the
it.
point is he was in high school and it was part of his educational process
His sex ed.
that he had seen, videos of this.
He'd seen a birth video, but
and
not
he-
live in person
He
with his
wanted
mother.
to see his brother or sister arriving. And I thought that was pretty strange. As I said, his father didn't even want to discuss it. And
And
when
the hospital was cool with it?
yeah, they had,
Oh.
I was sitting at the table filling out the forms for the family delivery room because his father wanted to be there. And so I said, oh gosh, you can have 6 people.
6 people, good Lord.
And he said, you can? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I want to be there. And I was like, what?
So that's how it started. Him
That's
wanting
how
to be
it
there.
Well, wait,
Oh.
just to backtrack real quick. So Dad was at how many births? Because, we're talking about James
Starting with number 5.
starting with number
Wasn't
5.
allowed before that anywhere.
Yeah.
And when they
Oh.
started allowing it, actually, the place that I liked going to was St. John's Hospital.
Where is that? In Santa
Santa
Monica?
Monica.
Okay, Santa Monica,
And
California.
that's where I would have gone, but they weren't allowing it yet.
Oh.
And so I said, does it really matter to you about whether or not you're going to be there, to Frank? And he said, yes. And I said, do you want me to change hospitals? And he said, yes.
So this was Rosemary.
Yes.
The 5th one he was there.
Otherwise, were you knocked out or no?
The only one I missed was William.
Now, why'd you miss it? What do you mean by missed?
Well, because I could tell they couldn't find the doctor because I heard them on the phone out in the corridor trying to round him up, and he wasn't in touch. And I was getting really kind of like, whoa, I don't know how this is going to wait any much longer. And so they said, well, let us give you just a little, take the edge off, gas. And I said, no, I think it was a shot. And I said, not if it puts me out. I'm very sensitive to medication. And she said, oh, no, it'll be fine. Well, she didn't even have the needle out of my arm. And I said, I'm drunk. You gave me a whole shot,
no.
didn't you? And she said, well, yes. And I said, I told you not to. I mean, I had enough still with it to know that I was really going under. And I did. And I went out and I missed the whole delivery.
But you still did a vaginal birth. They didn't do a C-section or anything like
No.
that.
I mean-
that's so bizarre to think about, because if you've given birth, it's like to think about that you are not coherent or not
but that was much more
present
typical at the
mentally.
time. I mean,
Absolutely. Natural birth.
I'm surprised you were awake for James. Like, how did that? Were you ahead of the curve that you
I
were?
just had an epidural, so you're awake if you have an epidural.
Oh, right.
But that was still of the era where it was just the woman and mostly knocked out. Or am I?
Yeah, most women wanted to be knocked out. And when you were born,
She's pointing at me, Catherine.
and we had taken the second Lamaze natural childbirth
Like ever offered,
in
right?
L.A.
Oh, mhm.
They had only had one class before that. And so we took it because I was so disappointed about missing William's birth, and I wanted to be awake and prepared this time. And I told them, you're never going to strap me down again. Because women on medication tend to thrash
do
around and make
anything,
things
sure.
difficult. And so as not to make things difficult, they would strap you down. And I said, that's it. You're never doing that again.
Yeah, you had such a bad experience that you wanted to really, really lock down what you wanted, and which was not. It was sort of the beginning of that wave of the natural childbirth being a real.
Most doctors had never heard of it.
God, that's so crazy.
Isn't that? And so as a result, this is kind of funny, but as a result, Frank knew somebody who had a TV interview program, and he had us on with you for the Mother's Day broadcast.
What?
So you were
I
like,
had
what,
never
2
heard
weeks
that.
old.
Oh my God, what?
And so naturally, I was in better shape after 2 weeks on the third child than I had been by the 6th and 7th, which I just stopped getting dressed for a whole week. And so anyway, so we went on the program, and, they had the camera on us, and he's talking, and Dad's talking, and I'm saying a little bit, and you did a big poop.
Oh,
On air
On air, and
Was it
we had
loud?
to just pretend that nothing was happening.
or smelling.
It was so ridiculous.
Well, a little background. Our dad, Frank, who Mom keeps referring to, was in the entertainment industry and moved from back east to Los Angeles, California to have an acting career. And back then, it was very different. No kid came in for pilot season from Colorado. Pretty much kid actors were children that their parents were actors.
Or in the industry in some way, agent
And
or, yeah.
So therefore, your family was almost like a commodity. Like, oh, you want to do an interview? I have a kid. I have a wife. We'll all partake. And that was part of our childhood. We'll get into that into another episode because there was a lot of funny stories because really only one sibling was successful. And once he decided to quit, he screwed all of us. So, but going back to, that's so interesting because then you fast forward to James wanting to be in the delivery room. And that speaks to sort of James being almost an old soul or a very different personality than even his brother William or other siblings. So when you said, I wanted to treat each child differently, how did that work? So even your first two, John and William.
No, James and William.
Oh my God. John is the youngest. Sorry. See,
That's part of the family dynamics is that we never get the list right when we're trying to, these 5? Let me think about it.
Yeah. How old is the sibling? I always have to think.
And the age gaps between siblings,
how long
then
they've been
forget
married.
it. I don't know, whatever. Okay.
But so Mom.
Oh, good.
So
that makes me feel much better because I have the same problem.
Yeah, no, don't worry. So then how did you kind of implement that, treating each kid differently?
I don't know. Like James loved to have books read to him. Now, somewhere down the line, some people weren't so interested. So we would read to James and he'd just be all happy with that. And somebody else was wiggling and leaving the room. Well, that was fine, But the overall thing that is so interesting to me looking back is to say it was absolutely exhausting to try to treat 8 children differently so it fit their personality, so it fit their needs, so it fit their direction of interest and so forth. Just amazing.
Well, I mean, just 8 people that you're trying to wrangle in any sense is exhausting. So, I can't. Can't even imagine.
Think about if I want to think about applying that, treating everyone differently. How many families have the variety of breakfast cereals that we did? That was 100% catering to all of our different wants, needs, desires. You want Wheaties, you want, shredded wheat. You don't want wheat, you want corn. Fine, corn flakes for you. The variety. All the lowest non-sugar cereals in the 80s, but,
Yeah,
well, there was
it's
some
true.
treating the same. Just talking about cereal made me think of like dinner was one thing. So it wasn't like you were, sometimes like when you would cook eggs, you'd be like, all right, I'm making all different kinds. Sunny side up, over easy. Like what,
Well,
you
had
would make
a griddle,
some,
right? So someone could say, I like sunny side up or, over easy.
Mm-hmm.
Or God forbid, Mom, right? If I had a crunchular, I'd faint. If that egg was not perfect. I don't think I was ever, I never was a morning person. So just getting up and out the door, whereas our younger sister, Virginia, is like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Like even that would drive you crazy, just having.
And puts herself to bed.
Oh, God.
Whoever believed that?
No, Virginia was always like that.
Number 6, the first 5 were always negotiating for another half hour just to end this show. Then I need to do this and that. And, bedtime would go on forever. And I'd be looking, and there's Ginny going up the stairs. I said, Ginny, where are you going? To bed.
She's like, good night, I'm tired. Out.
What?
Thank God.
Nobody
But
ever does
how
that.
great did that work out then? Choosing to treat us all like individuals, then some of us obviously figuring that out at an early age and leaning into it like, there's not like a standard bedtime. I guess I'm going to make I'm going to make
do my own
8:30
thing.
for myself. It's, I'm in 2nd grade. I got to figure this out. Like us having some of our own independence to figure these things out from the parenting style of letting you try things that your sibling's not doing because you don't have to do the same stuff.
Well, of course,
You want to go to bed?
Of course,
We'll
your
fight over
dad,
sibling.
had no experience of it. He had.
That's true. I
he had
hadn't brought
2
that up.
siblings. His brother died before he was a year old.
And that brother's name was William as well, right?
Of course,
Right.
yeah. That's where it came from.
Right.
And then his sister, who was 8 years younger, I mean, he was out
That's a big
shooting
gap,
BB
yeah.
guns in
Oh.
the woods.
So
while
Aunt
she
Judy was 8 years younger
They
than
had
Dad.
no relationship at all until they were adults.
First of all,
really.
can all of us just imagine
Oh.
Dad at 8 years old out in the woods shooting BB gun? Nope. That's an
I
interesting.
can't imagine Dad like young because he kind of
It's
just
hard. It's really
he
challenging.
was a very
to get back.
serious person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did, as you mentioned, his brother William would have been our uncle, but we didn't exist. Makes me realize another interesting family name. Our firstborn, our oldest brother, James, was named after our dad's dad, correct?
Right.
Who is known in the family as J. Elmer Kilmont. However, in actual fact, I think his real name
Was
is Elmer
Elmer.
J. And so,
Oh God, a good choice by him.
Dad
to
not
flip
having
that.
that locked in as a fact, decided to use his dad's abbreviated first name as his first son's first name. That's not my first name. What? I don't know when I caught on to that story, but I really enjoy the.
I don't think I knew
you
that
messed
either.
that one up.
And thank God, because
Well,
our James is Elmer would have been a real.
Oh,
That
you
would be
know,
actually
that would have
accurate.
ruined him.
Well, I actually say the way you named us is very interesting because the first four of us, there's James, William, Catherine, Elizabeth. They all sound very regal and royal. And then you went for Rosemary, basically like an herb. Like, what the hell happened there?
Well, when we had Rosemary, I think we were expecting a boy. I don't.
Well, you said twin boys.
Yeah,
But you
well,
obviously
twin
couldn't
boys.
find out.
And so we had no names in mind.
And there is twins on your side of the
And
family.
and in those days, you could stay 4 or 5 days in the hospital, really get
And
back
could you
on your
smoke
feet.
and drink in the hospital
Oh,
too?
Literally back on
yeah,
your feet.
you could. And
Was Rosemary the baby that has the picture of you in the hospital with the cigarette? Like you had Rosemary.
I don't remember.
There's a point at which you know where you quit, and we just drop that into our birth section, and we know exactly what it is. But
Okay, it had to be Elizabeth, or one of the older three, because I remember quitting smoking dramatically when Elizabeth was a baby, a
Got it.
really
And
small
now you have to
baby.
understand, put it in a little context, everybody. It was not known to be bad for you in that
just
way.
was
Getting
becoming
doctor's
known.
They were just getting.
recommendations.
I mean, like really early on, they would tell women to smoke and drink coffee so that they wouldn't gain too much weight during their
And
pregnancy.
doesn't James blame you for having? I mean, he's super high IQ, but he could be higher.
Oh, yes.
If you had not depleted his somewhat oxygen flow. Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Lord.
I'm really responsible
wait,
for
go back.
everything that didn't work in his life. And he's very happy to tell me.
Well, that is.
Speaking of different relationships with different kids, I mean, yeah. You have
That's an interesting dynamic.
Right. Okay. So go back just to naming Rosemary, because like I said, there kind of was. It made logical sense until Rosemary.
I'm going to jump in and say, I know some of it is like I've asked, where did Edward come from? Partly it is you go for the regal names, but also King Edward, King William, King James.
Well, no, that we
They're
had
biblical too. So part of what's happening in the Bible is the Bible is being written about the king of that time. So those names become what you would pick as a very religious family. We all grew up very religious. So I think Rosemary fits into that
Catholic.
category
Right.
better than like the Bible category.
Mom's
better
shaking
than-
her
well,
head no.
Sorry.
mom wants to
Go for it.
respond,
I-
so let
yeah.
her.
That's your perception, Ed. Mom, what's the reality?
The names were followed by a title: James the First, William the Conqueror, Catherine the Great,
Which is definitely true. I must say,
Elizabeth the Queen,
but that's also true.
and Rosemary's the baby. I think we were ready
Oh
to
my
quit
God,
at
that's a
that
horror
point.
Done.
movie.
I know.
but also think about the timing of all those, right? The proximity of first, second, third, fourth, fifth. You are all really closer together. Virginia's a
Wait
big
a minute.
break.
Oh my God, which? But
Feels like you
definitely,
might have
she's not
felt
here. We're
like
not
you're
throwing her
done.
under the bus, but let's just say the personality was very strong with her. So then here comes Virginia Grace, right?
Grace, and that was because really there had been a big change in my spiritual life, the grace part. But Virginia, Frank came to me and he said, we had really, really expected a boy that time. Wrong. That was 4 girls in a row. And he came to me and he said, I want to name her Virginia. Actually, he picked the first 4 names anyway. And Rosemary was another story. But he said he wanted to name her Virginia. And I said, why? And she was the only sister in a large family they lived quite close to. His first date and a lifelong friend who had died on that date
Oh, what?
previously.
Wow.
And he asked her brother to be Virginia's godfather.
Oh, wow. I didn't know
It
that.
was very
What-
Wait, is
what-
that
That's all
Basil?
associated.
No,
Yeah.
who was? Oh, it was Basil?
And what's their family last name?
Sullivan.
Sullivan.
Yeah.
Oh, I kind of
I don't
remember that.
remember.
O'Sullivan?
We
No,
visited
just
the-
Sullivan.
Sullivan.
on one of our epic
Crazy.
family vacations. We went up to Seattle and visited them, right? That was them. No?
No,
We went to the East Coast.
That's
and that's
right,
when we
right.
saw
because they
them.
were staying on the beach, which might have been like a Cape Cod, maybe.
Yeah, I remember
I
this
don't
too.
remember where
And
we
Basil was a kind of a cool character.
Oh, he was.
That was my
he
overall impression.
fascinating.
Yeah.
He was fascinating.
Wait, so where again? Where did Rosemary come from then?
Rosemary came along, and we were expecting boys, so we had no girl names picked out. And
You were so confident with this boy prediction.
Yeah,
That's
we were
so
totally
funny.
so
wrong.
wrong.
Wait, did you have boy names picked out? If it had been a boy?
yeah, but I don't
Ooh,
remember.
All
what they
right,
were.
all right. We don't need to get in that.
And so we were having debates about it in the hospital, and I was in the hospital 4 days. We still had baby Kilmond.
Oh wait, so you're
No name.
you
for
had
4
said
days.
you could stay in the hospital for quite a while. So you're saying for 4 days you still didn't have. It was just baby girl Kilmond.
That's right.
Okay. Wow.
And I don't know how we came up with Rosemary. I think it was kind of a compromise name.
Well, and their saints are an influence on you for sure. Is
Not
there,
Is there a
was that-
Saint Rosemary?
I'm sure there is.
I have no idea.
know.
There's a St. Rose, but I don't think that was the basis
That was not the-
for our picking the name.
Not a factor necessarily. Okay.
And we just settled on it, and we were quite happy with it. And the second name, Patricia, was the nurse who was on duty.
What the hell?
Rosemary, we're sorry when you listen to this episode that you find out that your middle name is
the
from a random nurse at the new hospital that my mom had gone to after 4 kids. Oh, I love that hospital. We're bailing on that hospital, going to the new one where Dad can come in, and we're going to name it after whoever's in the room.
Well, maybe the nurse was super great. You know.
Yeah, she was.
Okay, so the nurse deserved it after 4 days of dealing with baby girl Kilmond.
But you know, that's
she gets a second.
because we all have nicknames. You know, you've always pretty much gone by Catherine. You've never
That's
really
true.
gone
And
Kathy.
Ed bringing up that James was named after Dad's dad. I'm named after his mom,
Yeah.
Catherine Aloysius.
which I didn't get the Aloysius.
But
Thank
you're
goodness.
strong
But my,
choice.
but my
But
niece
somebody else
did.
did.
We have a second Catherine in the family, and she is Catherine.
She got the
Aloysius.
full load of the
full,
name.
yeah, the full. That's
is-
James's kid.
I mean,
which is funny that
It's a
he-
family name, so you have the same name as Dad's mom. But are there any other duplicate names? Or is it just 2
yeah,
Catherines?
William Francis
Oh,
So
was
right.
William
Still-
Francis was
This
his
is the
brother was
third
also
one.
oh,
in a row.
Okay.
and James also has a William Francis. So that's
Okay, so that name's carried through. But so for nicknames, you know, some of the James really
we
always.
never used them. We never used nicknames.
no.
Well, no, I was always Liz. I mean,
Not to us. You were Elizabeth, and then
what?
finally,
No, lady.
you
No,
had a
no,
strong
no,
personality.
No, no, no.
it didn't come from us.
No, here's the deal. I'll say, okay. So James never was Jim or Jimmy.
Nope.
Sorry. So he was James. William was always William. But it was interesting later in life, you know, they'd go to college or William went away actually for high school. They'd
He
come
tried to
back
go to
as Bill.
Bill,
And
yeah.
you're like, who the hell is Bill?
Yeah, you'd get a call on the landline. Is Bill there? And you're like, no. Oh, you mean my brother William, who you apparently are calling Bill?
What
I
year
guess
are we
so.
talking?
Hold
We're talking
on.
88. He's moved back home after college, and that's happening. He got his own phone and answering
Because
system.
he got so irritated
Because
with
that
us.
was not working
He
for
didn't
him.
want
He
us to
needed
know-
his Bill calls.
Yeah, he
No,
also
that
didn't want us
is
to know his
not the
business.
reason. I was on the phone all the time, and he couldn't stand
We had
it.
the-
And he'd get really impatient. He'd say, I told him, I said, you have to get your own line. Sorry.
Oh.
Oh.
I mean, you're not going to interrupt me every time you turn around.
But I have my own phone number. I even can remember it. my phone number, but I had
I don't remember
the girls
you having
had.
one.
Oh yeah,
I remember her having.
we had a
phone.
downstairs phone line, which
That was
I
the
think
big move in the
William
80s.
tried to get in on for a while, and it was like eventually he just got his own phone line. But I was gonna say, you were never Kathy.
I went
Cat.
I did in high school. So people who know me from high school will still call me Kathy.
So
And I don't. I
weird.
mean, you know,
Yeah, that
I
seems
I
weird.
don't. It doesn't seem to fit me, and I don't really think. But Catherine always feels very formal and long. So I'm always like, I mean, I wouldn't
And you're
mind
like
cat
two hard
or cat.
consonants, like
Yeah.
Catherine Kilmont.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I mean, if you were going to be Catherine the Great, you can hardly be Kathy the Great.
It loses some of the
A
luster.
little bit of the punch.
Although I would like to offer Kitty.
Oh,
I
Lord.
mean-
That was-
I mean, how
that
old
was
is
your
that?
grandmother's. That was your
that's what
grandmother's
Grammy
real
went
name.
by. She went by Kitty, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
And
so,
then
it's so
she
like
finally-
Kitty. Like it just seems like I have a cocktail and a cigarette, and we're gonna sit next to each other and gossip. Kitty.
Or someone fun,
said
which I don't
at
think I
her
fit that
age-
description.
She said at her age, Kitty really seemed silly, and she went by Catherine
Ah.
more than I knew her.
As she got older,
Yeah, yeah.
but I was always
As far as nicknames go, me and Ginny. I am known in the family as Eddie.
Yeah.
Everyone
Not
refers to me
Edward.
as Eddie. Unless I'm in trouble, I don't get Edward. Then I do get Edward.
You are
But as an
named
adult,
after.
I've rescinded back to Ed. I prefer Ed
Yeah.
in my
Yeah, but
Right.
friends,
you're-
common life, etc. And a lot of you still pull out the Eddie when it's very familial or family related, but you all really live
see
in the
that is
Ed.
right.
In the Ed mode, yeah.
And so then Elizabeth. The only time you ever called me Elizabeth, Mom, is when I wasn't Elizabeth. I mean, then I'd be in trouble.
Well,
Otherwise,
where were you in the house? You got to yell the whole name.
For
Make sure
sure.
they know.
but otherwise, Liz, not Lizzie, but Liz was always my name. I mean, no one really calls me Elizabeth. I tried at one point as an actress to become Elizabeth. And then
What
just-
about Beth?
Do you
I'm
remember?
never a
Do
Beth.
you remember your nickname?
Oh wow!
I'm
Lizard
scared.
Breath.
God damn it, Mom!
She was the hairless wonder until she was 4. I mean, she had really the wispiest little bit of hair. and
Well,
then
she
all
was
of a
like
sudden
very much a
this
towhead. as a kid.
luxurious.
Right, but yes,
And glamorous.
Lizard, Lizard, Zard. The lizard got played up a lot, and we actually had a hill behind us, so there were lizards around, so it actually did kind of work.
And
but-
you're always going,
Gosh, Liz was pretty much what I always went by, and Rosemary was Rosie. But
Yeah.
now as an adult, it's funny. All of her social scene is Rosemary, and if I refer to her as Rosie, she gets irritated with me.
Yeah, she says it sounds like an old timey waitress. She does not like it. And I find myself like,
but it's
I
Rosie
still,
the Riveter. I mean, that's
Oh,
a real
well,
image.
Hey,
So-
what do you think Rosie the Riveter was doing before she got the job riveting? She's probably waiting tables.
maybe. Yeah, because I like on text and stuff, I'll still type Rosie. It doesn't feel like I'm
Her
annoying
husband will
her.
call her Rosie, but it's Rosemary. Like we have to.
but
So I have to check myself. Like,
Okay, so Eddie's named after his uncle Eddie.
Yeah,
right?
Dear, dear, dear. And when I went back, not too many years ago, to visit my sister, we went and
Check that. Great uncle? Your dad's brother.
yes, my
Not
dad's
my
brother.
uncle. That would be your uncle. My great uncle.
Got it.
Yeah, and so I went to visit his daughters, who are more or less in my age group. My sister and I went, and we got talking about our fathers. And it turned out that when my dad went to visit them, he was fun and funny and played jokes with them and games. And at home,
You were like, who's that? Who are you talking about?
and
Uncles
the
are a
opposite
totally
was
different
true.
breed.
The opposite was true. His brother, he would come over, he was fun and he was funny and he was
Same
a
thing.
character. We finally figured out when I became an adult, my husband, your dad, said to me, I don't think Eddie can read.
What?
Oh, his.
I mean,
because
it's still
he
true.
made
Just
up
kidding.
the children's books that he was reading to the kids. He wasn't reading to the kids. He was making up a story based on the pictures.
Could he really not read?
I don't know. We never found out. But it was just one of these shocking kind of like,
Well,
How
it's
could that be
interesting.
What,
true?
and like, how old are we talking? What's the generation? When was your dad born?
19.
And let's approximate within
Well, and how
a
many-
couple years, right?
Yeah, and how many siblings? Didn't your dad? I mean, he's part of the Couture family.
right, there were 10.
There were
There were
10.
10
Woo! There were actually 13, but 10 survived.
What do you mean 10 survived?
The first year, a lot of children didn't make
So
it
in the
through
first
Like
year-
your dad's
In that
brother.
era, like if you were having
So
a
is this
kid
the
every
20s
year,
and 30s?
I
30s and 40s?
couldn't.
No.
I was born in the 40s. Hello.
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So we're talking
Sorry
like
about that. So 20 years before
Teens to
that.
the 20s.
yeah,
Because
teens to the
Whoa.
they
20s.
didn't get married very young because it was the Depression.
Oh, really?
So I think Dad was 30.
Oh,
close to
really?
30, and Mom was 25 or 26 before they got married. Was, not at all like our generation, because I got married at 21 and the average age was 20.
Yeah,
for
that was
woman to get
an
married
early.
then.
People were
And
getting
very
married
few
early.
women went to college then.
Mm-hmm.
And only a third of them graduated.
Yeah.
Had you already gone to college or were you going to college
No,
at the
no.
time?
Oh, well, I started dating your dad when I was in college, but no, he was very careful not to propose until
You were done.
officially until just before graduation.
Okay, but you actually finished college before
Yeah,
you got married.
yeah,
Nice.
Yeah, and then he offered to have me. What? Don't you want to go back to college? No, was my answer at the time. Are you kidding?
Because you were not, which is ironic now because you were a school teacher for
30 years.
30 years. You were not a great student.
Not till college.
Right, not till college.
Well, you were like some of your kids, very much a social butterfly. Like you were very interested in.
Distractible, at least.
Oh,
Well, I also feel like when you were going to school that time, that era, women continuing their education, you put your effort all the way into that, and then we're finding out, you're saying not a great student. Many years later in life, you have dysgraphia and dyslexia. How challenging was that?
yeah.
Like getting to the college through those things at that time with no help. That's got to be like
With
a
no one
way harder
understanding.
level. Yeah.
Yeah. Recognizing it, forget it.
Actually, grade school and high school were harder because you had to do everything.
Yeah.
You
Instead
didn't have
of focusing,
to do everything
yeah,
in
on
college.
one
you
class or
You
something.
could focus in on what you were good at.
And you went to grade school and high school in Santa Monica, California, that area of Los Angeles?
Beginning in Boston.
Oh,
and then
okay.
I came out here. I was in 6th grade.
Oh, 6th grade. I wasn't
Oh.
sure when you came from Boston.
And then this is a story I want to know about, getting back to names and nicknames. When did this infamous, your name is Mary Evelyn Couture. When did the infamous Sandy come in?
For 1 year when I was away at college.
Who are you? What are you trying to pull? I mean, why? What's this
What is
alternative
Sandy-
name?
See,
I
how
went
is
to a
Sandy even related?
Catholic women's college.
Okay. And
I
there were
had sandy
15
colored
Marys.
hair. And there were, you'd say Mary and 15 girls. And
Oh,
turn
no
around.
way. Oh, okay.
So ditch that name, please.
What?
I was ready for a complete change of life here. And so we came up before even the first week, a couple of friends of mine, that I should be called Sandy. So that was great news.
But-
I thought
However,
that
it
was
didn't
fun.
last until you actually met our father
stick.
and then married him.
No, I
Because you were
came
in college at
back
that time, but not
and-
Sandy.
And I was living at home.
No one
and
was getting on board.
no one. They thought I was ridiculous.
Because you are the second oldest, right?
Yeah.
Because how many siblings did you have growing? I mean, in your
I
time?
had 4 siblings, so there were 5 of us.
5 is total. You have an older brother.
Yeah. He was Joseph,
Mm-hmm.
named after St. Joseph. I was married, named after the Blessed Mother. Peter was named after the first pope. I mean, it just went on. And then Richard and Therese were born 7 years later.
And they're
Oh,
twins.
that's a big gap.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same gap in our family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's interesting.
Interesting.
Oh, that was just so mortifying that you had a child, because James was 18. We'll get back to James wanted to be in the birth room for our youngest brother John's birth, right? And so that's an 18-year gap, and you were almost 40 or 40 when John was born.
40.
It was so mortifying because back then no women were not having babies at that age, and also it's like we already
Yes.
had 7 children.
They were having children at that age, but they hadn't had any before that.
Yeah, that was their first.
So I'd go out with John, and people would say to me, "Oh, is this your first child?" I would be
In 6
really
years,
reluctant
yes.
to tell them, "No, he's my 8th." 'Cause I'd be all dressed for work, looking like a professional woman
Yeah, because you went and got your teaching credential
at 40.
at
What was the degree that you got?
overlapped with John.
yeah, I
at that
remember you
time?
were in
I
school.
picked up my
Yeah.
credential and my pregnancy confirmation for the 8th pregnancy the same week.
Oh,
Wait,
God.
what? lady.
Yeah.
So you picked up your teaching credential and found out you were pregnant the same week.
Yeah.
So you're about to go into which is like almost like a provincial, like not provincial, but a
supervisory
teaching. So did you put that on hold, or what did you do?
I just went right ahead.
Well, didn't you moved out for a little bit and you lived with some friend?
Wait, what?
No, I didn't. Only for 1 week when John was born.
Okay. No, I didn't. Well, for 1 week. I mean, I'm not making it up.
No,
you
but
left
you're making it
because
sound
look,
a lot.
no.
lot
I'm
more than
saying
you're
like,
saying.
how did you not stay away longer? God.
What?
Like,
How
all
was that
of us
the
at
first time
home.
you did that?
They were ready to send me home, and I was like, I am not going home and have 7 people crawling all over me. And John had problems when he was
Yeah,
born.
he
was
Underweight.
He cried a lot too.
He was not underweight.
I mean,
He
obviously
weighed
now he's very
914
loud.
when
So
he was
loud.
born. Hello.
Oh, okay.
He was what?
He was the biggest.
Oh, he was a big baby.
Yeah.
But then he was
No,
having
Did
trouble.
you think he was going to be a girl?
He had jaundice
Oh.
when he was born. He had to go back to the hospital.
It was yellow.
Yeah.
Didn't you think he was going to be a girl?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because I remember being so shocked when you called. I was so excited because he was
Wasn't
born
it
on
going
a
to be like
weekend.
Allison or Megan or something?
Madeline.
Madeline.
Oh, strong name. But okay, so he was born on a weekend, and we always had weekend chores, and you really couldn't go do your fun thing until your weekend chore was done. And you went into
You're
labor.
thinking you're going to get some helper.
No, it's like then we didn't have to do our weekend chores because no one was really there to monitor us. But the phone rang, and you told us it was a boy, and we were like, "What?" Yeah, because your instincts were obviously very wrong and off.
Yeah,
every
you were
single
really
time.
not nailing it. You-
No, I wasn't. Not at all.
This will be a topic for a different podcast, but I definitely feel like the proximity and landing spot of some of the birthdays, that had to be the Rosemary's
What?
absolute worst birthday ever. She may have gotten a younger baby as a present, but she could not have had a good birthday party on August 9th, 3 days after this dude was born.
No, Rosie's always been bitter about her birthday,
Oh.
so it
Well,
doesn't matter.
just
add
I'm
it
just saying,
on.
like, add one
Just she's
extra
a summer
in front of
birthday.
him. Ugh.
Summer birthdays are hard because all your friends
Nobody's
are out.
around.
No one's around. And so she always kind of had a bitter pill. And she was also the famous one for she'd have whatever mom would overextend herself and figure out some great birthday party for her. 2 days later, be like, what are we doing next year? And that's where you came up with the rule you weren't allowed to talk
I
about
thought
your
that was
birthday.
me. I thought I was the one.
Maybe
who
we
got
all
in
did
trouble.
it.
But just to clarify, just so people understand what we're talking about, there's a cluster of August birthdays. So
Yes.
there was 3 siblings that were all within a week of each other in August, all spread out. So we were talking about James, and then John being born 2 days after, and then Rosemary was ahead of that. So it
And
was
then a granddaughter also ended up
So
in
what?
August.
When you go back 9.5 months, what were you and Dad up to?
Thanksgiving.
the usual thing.
There's a couple of really good Thanksgiving nights. Didn't have enough wine. Nobody's passing out. Let's get it going. You're not making soup tonight, are you? Nope. Okay.
oh my
Eggs
god,
and
That
soup.
deserves a whole podcast of its own.
My God.
what soup? I hope you're talking about soup. Just kidding.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
The Kill-Mon soup, as it were.
We have a couple overlappy birthdays. I mean, that August group was very early on, but then
And
Mom.
Rosie is still slightly annoyed to this day.
She's had the biggest birthday of anybody in this family ever.
I know,
except
but
for
she
me.
wanted her own standalone. Like, this is my birthday, because it's always been that she has to share almost like a birthday
yeah,
week.
it's like and almost always it's like a birthday group.
But going back to you kind of treating us as individuals and different, you would do, homemade cakes. I mean, we never got the fancy Carvel cake. Probably someone did dig in and get it, which was an ice cream cake. But typically you would make the cakes, which,
When you got
taste
to
better.
pick your dinner,
But it was embarrassing as a kid because your friends would have these fancy cakes from these bakeries, and here comes this jalopy cake with a half-burnt candle.
Liz, do you think that is
Well,
maybe
look.
where your high-level professional cooking comes from? A want to not have that. I know. I want restaurant quality service at my dining room table in case there's guests.
No, I do like
That'll be a whole other topic about sort of how that has evolved over time. But yes, you would do all different birthday cakes. I mean, of course, Rosie ruined it at one
and
point.
you got to choose your breakfast, lunch, and
Yeah, that's
dinner
what I was
on your
just saying.
birthday.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
You get one day
Yeah,
a
you
year
got-
where
you
you're
got to
very,
pick
very
the-
special.
and you got sugar cereal, like, but you
got to
don't
pick
buy
the
the
whole
small
thing.
boxes because you didn't want to hold one around too long. Because Rosie, sometime in the 70s, she became sugar. You became aware she was sugar
Like highly
hypersensitive.
highly
she
reactive.
really
She
ruined
would
all of our
be
lives.
bouncing off the walls. And
Not that we were a big dessert family,
no,
but then it became like no sugar was around. Like there wasn't like just a thing of cookies. It would be so special if there was, or ice cream. And she was the one that had the carob. Carob is like an artificial chocolate. That was it looked
I
so
think it's
good.
I think it's a natural alternative to
Oh.
chocolate. Like it's not tree bark, but it's like, ooh, this is kind of chocolatey. We could sell this.
It is brown.
It's all natural. It's not your cocoa. You're like, it's not
No,
chocolate.
it
no
And
good.
I'm
looks like
sorry
it.
that you have to enjoy this, but I'm not going to have another bite.
It's like how every child was indoctrinated into helping with cooking in the kitchen. Would be like, don't you want this piece of chocolate? It looks so good. You know you want this piece of chocolate. Every kid fell for it, and it was always the unsweetened chocolate bar.
Like, yeah, the baker's chocolate.
And then mom would go, you just wasted a whole piece of that chocolate.
oh dear, we
So
had
you-
many adventures.
Yeah, well, there was basically a birthday at least a month, much less the log jam in August. But you basically always had. There's no December birthdays, right?
Nope, thank God.
No, just
But
after
2
December.
in January.
January,
which is
'cause
you're
Ed.
already.
And I share it with our father, January 15th.
Right.
Mine's
And he
17th.
was a grump about his birthday.
Yeah,
Reminds
why?
me of
Do you know why?
well, partly because he played teenage roles in his 30s,
Which people do that now still. But
and
yeah.
people weren't supposed to know that he was aging. And in a family with a lot of kids, you got celebrated. He really didn't want to pay any attention to it. Plus, what she didn't like surprises. Plus, what she didn't like new things. Well, what a combo for not liking your birthday.
Now you didn't know this when you married him, right?
Oh,
'Cause-
of course not. And I threw him a surprise party. It was completely mortifyingly awful.
For what year? Like what year of your
I think
marriage?
he was 40. So the oldest child would have been 9 at that point.
Did you throw it at our house?
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
Assuming you invited many, many people.
of course.
He loved that, I'm sure. No.
I would love for any of those party members to be on this podcast and tell us about that experience. Just a different perspective than yours. Because none of the kids are going to have that experience in our memory. Even James would be like,
No,
I
that'd
went
be-
to sleep. You know,
Well,
whatever,
because
or
you know
went
what
to bed.
else? Our dad didn't have a great poker face. For being an actor, if he was upset, you knew he was upset. If he didn't like something or if he was angry, like you kind of knew dad's emotions. So I can't imagine being like, surprise! And he's faking that funk. I don't know if he was able to pull that off.
I can't remember. I just remember it was really a bad idea.
And he didn't like gifts because, we'd always like, okay, get him a new rake. It was not. One year he was so excited because he got like 4 flashlights. No one knew it. Go to your local,
was so
Rite Aid or
funny.
CVS and just get something for him because it was just,
Well, he always would say, you could never find a flashlight around here that works.
So yeah.
So everybody, without consulting each other, thought of getting him a flashlight.
Which I think he did actually really like.
Wasn't that Christmas?
Oh,
Yes.
It was Christmas. It wasn't his birthday.
You're right,
And we
John.
went over to our good friends, the Delcados, where we went for a post-Christmas party every year. And he'd gotten plaid flannel boxers. And so he put them on over his pants.
there's a picture of this. I
and
remember.
he has a flashlight tucked under each arm, one in each hand, one between his legs. I mean, it was so... He had a really hilarious
Out
sense
of
of
age
humor.
kids, I will say how you treat us differently. I would say as siblings and children, because there's an 18-year gap, you as parents were very different with the first 4 of us, the first group to the second group, especially, and then our younger brothers, our last 2 brothers. Dad was an extremely more relaxed parent. I mean, like,
night and day.
Can I
different.
tell the story about how relaxed he was?
yes.
So he would drive the kids to school because I was teaching by the time John was a baby. And he was sitting in the back seat. He was a toddler. And he was sitting in the back seat in his seat. And Dad's driving them to school. And Rosemary goes, "Ew!" Dad, John picked his nose. And Dad says, oh, that's okay. I told him he could do that. Just completely deflated
All
there.
rules out the.
Oh, he got, he had the perfect parent by that time. He was so well trained.
Yeah, and he was so much more relaxed, I think, at that point. It was like, I can let a lot of stuff slide.
Yeah.
Like, I, as the fourth child, had the most social life, but you two never stayed awake for me to come home, ever. No.
If I was awake, it was because I had too many papers to correct.
Well, yeah, because you not only got your teaching credential, then you went on to get your master's in education.
No, it wasn't an
What's
In
your
education.
family counseling, I thought.
No, it's
Family and
religious
pastoral
studies.
counseling?
Hey, wait, Mom. Yeah.
Religious studies.
Wait, Mom, what was your master's in?
Yeah.
Clearly, we don't
Religious
know.
studies.
Religious studies.
Really?
Yeah, and then I got a certification in pastoral counseling.
Hello, I just said that.
Yes,
But it was
wasn't
wrong.
the
You said
master's.
it incorrectly.
No, I said
but
it
the
incorrectly.
masters also came kind of later. Like
Oh,
I
yeah,
was
quite a
alive.
bit
I
later.
remember a lot of that. But then also, although the classes came before, I kind of remember. But when did you get this certificate?
Part of the program for religious studies. It added, I don't know, 15, 20 units or something to the program.
But you've always had a love of learning. I mean, I feel like even now you're
You
involved in
know
some Bible
why?
study.
Because it was awful for me.
Well, I think
The only thing I liked about school was PE. We didn't have PE when I was little, and they didn't have kindergarten in the Catholic schools when I was
Oh,
little.
that's right.
So I went to first grade, underage, undersized. My feet didn't even reach the floor, sitting in
Oh,
the little
geez.
desks. And all I wanted to do was go home to lunch.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, that was my favorite thing.
Well, I feel like in the same way that you were conscious of your experience as a kid in your family being treated the same as everybody else, not being treated individually, that whether or not you want to teach, I think you recognized your experience wasn't great. I've got all these kids. I'm dealing with all of them. They're all having challenging experiences. I think I could probably opt into that. And
I had no idea. I went
Insight,
back.
you mean, at the time,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I had no insight. The only insight I had was, here you all are. John was going into kindergarten. It was when Rosemary was, no, Eddie, when you were little. You were a toddler. And I got this idea. Well, really, I think it was an inspiration from God because it was so outlandish for me to want to go back to teaching. I didn't like school.
Right.
No, I liked the sociability of it. I liked college was really a good experience because then I really got into things at a level that was interesting.
I think there's a performance level too. You're in front of a classroom and you're presenting things and
No, none of that.
Really?
The only reason I went back to teaching was this idea. The story behind the idea of why I went back and got a teaching credential is probably too long to tell right now. But one of the practical reasons was I'll be on the same schedule as my kids because they're all in school.
okay.
And there were still a lot of us in a lot of years in school.
But you never taught at a school any of us went to.
I almost did. And when I was at Our Lady of the Valley, I was going to make, an application to teach at St. Mel's. Because if you taught at a school and your kids went there, they went free.
Yeah.
And so I told him that I was going to do that. And he said, well, why would you want to make a lateral move like that? And I said, because the kids would go free and it'd be close to home. We'd be on the same schedule, really, because occasionally it was different. And he said, oh, don't do that. He said, go back and get your master's and teach what you really love.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's nice.
And
Supportive.
what I really loved teaching was religion. I mean, because we get into these great discussions about things going on in their lives and, and it was about real life, not history, which I liked because it was about people, but they're dead. So it's not so exciting. So anyway, I went back. I started my master's program when Eddie was 2 or 3. And I remember being in it when he was in kindergarten. And I finished when you were what? I can't remember.
I mean, before 6, because I mean, you started teaching at that point.
Yeah.
You were teaching by the time John was born. I was 6.
That's true.
And
That's true.
I'm like, oh, you're teaching 6th grade? I got this figured out. I'll be in your class if I go to the school, right? I'm 6th grade, 6, same numbers. Oh, that's not how it works. Dang. I'm 6.
Well,
I don't know
anyway,
things.
it's interesting that I didn't make that lateral move because only a couple of years later, the archdiocese suspended that because
free tuition.
somebody brought a lawsuit against them because it was unfair
Unfair compensation. Because
Yeah,
then,
yeah, exactly.
somebody who doesn't have kids isn't getting that perk, if you will.
Oh,
And
being
then-
a teacher
Yeah.
at the school and not having a child there.
So
Got it.
then,
Disregarding free
underpaying
education.
us to the point that it was ludicrous between the public schools and the private schools, we had to pay tuition. It's just insane.
Yeah, I mean, let's not be a whole other topic. How you
Yeah.
and Dad, 8 kids, private school,
Mostly
born and raised in
teachers,
LA.
yeah.
I mean, just the.
Yeah.
It's an interesting description of your recollection of getting the master's. In that John's not born yet, I'm a toddler going on to, kindergarten and 1st grade. There are 6 other siblings ahead of me, all of whom are old enough to be in school, be in class, and suddenly you teaching and being on the same schedule as them actually is the future of you going back to school and being on the same schedule as them. So it actually worked out timing-wise for everyone to be at the age where they're out of the house during school hours for you to go back and get a master's versus go back to teaching.
I mean, it's
It's
interesting you
interesting.
say
This
same
opens
schedule.
that spot.
Yeah, I mean, when you say the same schedule, I will say, my earlier years, I remember you being sort of an at-home mom, and there was so much to do, like constantly busy. But when you went back to school, I mean, you would leave, if not before us, and you made your teaching career very involved. And so you definitely barely came home before dinner, and there was always like complete pandemonium getting dinner on the table. You were not someone, it was pretty rare they'd be like, Mom, help me with my homework, help me do laundry. It was like, so the idea like, I'll have my kids' same schedule. And no, I mean, in the sense of like, it wasn't like, it was almost like you were then a real working mom. I mean, so with a career.
It was
yeah.
a full-time job. It was really a full-time job. And so I treated it like that. I went to work and I stayed till about 5, almost every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And I did have the freedom to accommodate things that really had to be done with you kids during those hours, but which is not possible in most careers. But, the famous story is if you said you didn't feel good in the morning, I'd say, well, go to school and we'll see how you do. And only once with all of these kids and all of the times they tried that, like on days when they're spelling tests that they weren't ready for or whatever else, or they hadn't finished their project or they really weren't feeling that great in the morning. The only once did Catherine throw up at school and I had to leave and go get her and take her home.
Well,
Poor
even
baby.
high school years, our poor father, once the girls, flow period started, man, you would be already gone in the morning. And all you had to say was Dad was like, oh, I'm having the worst period. He didn't want to know about it. He didn't want to hear about it. He's like, fine, stay home. But you had to, pace that out. Like, because,
You couldn't pull it every month.
no, you also couldn't pull it like every 2 weeks. It's like, well, do we need to go visit a doctor? What's happening with you?
I don't want to know, but I'm also paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, Dad was a little more lax at that point. And then also, we independently had to get ourselves to school, whether we were riding our bikes,
A friend picking us
a
up.
friend
or-
picking us up, and all those, how we would get to and from school became a little more independent.
Do you remember when I think it was you in
Mm-hmm.
high school, and the last name of the girls, there were a couple of sisters, was Rose, I believe. And one of them used to come to pick you up and you were never
Melody
ready.
Rose.
No, Melody Rose, but that was not me. I was already out of high school.
So was that Rosie?
yeah, Rosemary.
Well, she'd have to come in
Oh,
most
no.
mornings.
'Cause
Uh-oh.
she-
And she loved it.
Yeah, I was going to say,
She loved it.
This-
She was disappointed when she didn't get to come in.
well, because I actually think there are friends of ours growing up that loved the chaos in our household, whether they were in a much more regimented traditional family,
Or just
boring.
like much smaller. It
You
was
know,
fun to watch the
yes.
craziness of such a big house.
And I would find that fascinating. But there were quite a few years that people would like come live with us, like there was room, but somehow that would happen. But yes, I think that carpool was early on purpose. Like, oh, I'm going to come in and there's a donut or there's a bowl of cereal, a glass of orange juice, and I'm just watching complete pandemonium happen. So I was like, I think that happened.
We grew up with a father who was on a soap opera, but we were kind of our own soap opera. Like if you televised that decade
Don't you remember? Don't you remember Bill Paris? And he'd sit there at the table with us and make comments as if he was watching a soap opera.
So he was a family
and just,
friend, yes.
make
that
these
didn't
cracks
translate,
that
came as insults directly at you
Well,
as a child.
Mom called
Bill
him-
Paris was just
Okay.
calling you out. You're like, rude.
So this was a family friend of our father's who was a bachelor, probably at that point almost in his late 40s or 50s. He had a wicked sense of humor, but kind of he came to Hollywood to
he was
try
pretty
to.
out of it, actually.
Well, he would be making comments out loud as if we couldn't hear him.
Yeah.
And he'd do the classic, "Get away from me, kid! I can't stand you!" Like all this type of stuff.
Oh, no, that's a W.C. Fields. His line was, "Isn't it past your bedtime?"
Oh,
Have you
yes,
ever
that was-
called him back on his razz and tried to razz him back? He's like, "Go to bed, child." Like
He lived with us for one summer, didn't he?
Yes,
we haven't
he
had
did.
dinner yet.
No, he lived in our house. We went on a long
Road trip.
road trip, and we took all the kids with us, and he had the watering to do. He came and lived with us, and then we left.
And then all the plants died.
Well, he didn't water them
Yes.
until the last day. Put the hose on full force.
Oh, God.
And they just sprang out of the ground, like to get away from it was so insane. And so we
He
were
did
there.
wear glasses. Maybe he just couldn't see that well.
I think he didn't get up. But anyway, so then it was going on that he was still with us. He had come because he couldn't get a hotel the first night. And it was months later.
Oh, because he'd moved from back east.
Yes.
So the
So-
timing. So
so
he
he's-
he didn't have his own apartment or anything yet in Los Angeles,
So
and
he's-
it worked to house sit for us initially.
So he started as a house sitter and then was a guest who didn't leave.
So then, finally, it was almost time to start school. And I said, you need to find another place to live. I mean, it was never supposed to be permanent.
I remember we had that intercom system, and you're like, "Bill, breakfast is now," or
I never said his name. I just called all the rooms. And he was the first one to come out. Didn't
he's
want
like,
to miss
"I'd like
breakfast."
going back to the calling out of the eggs. I really want them differently. Mary, I'd like mine poached." You're like, "Get the out!"
I never said that
No,
word
I
at those
know.
times.
Well, Mom,
we were not allowed to curse as children.
No. Mom, this hopefully will be the first of many times, and we will get into so many ridiculous stories of being raised in the chaos of our
The
house.
Kilmont household.
I mean, yep.
It's
it
very
How
is.
did
dynamic.
I ever get through earning my teaching credential and getting a master's while all you kids were little?
It is
Well, we'll
impossible
get into
to
it, but
imagine
there
how you
was
did it. Yeah.
a independent element that some of his older siblings had to have, and then also helping raise the younger generation. So
and
And
kind
you
of
botched it. No.
kind of unspoken as of yet, built into like our family history. We don't necessarily think about it. We mentioned that our father was an actor, and that was one of the things that he did. He also ran a religious books and goods store, but also had a manager that would operate the store. So he could go on auditions and drop kids off at school or pick them up.
Well, he
like
taught school.
there was
You
a-
didn't bring that up.
there was a point where we were talking about that in earlier episode, but it's just like there's a wide variety of careers where it's not like both of you were out of the house from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. at his office job and your teaching job, and we just fended for ourselves. There were days where like,
how he didn't set
Dad's
the house
available.
on fire, I don't know. But I mean, you forgot Dad also was an insurance salesman. So
Yeah.
there were
There's a
we'll
lot
get
of
into
stuff.
that whole the careers of the Kilmonts. But yes, we didn't burn the house down. We have all
You almost did, Catherine.
What?
Oh Lord.
I called to tell you to put on the enchiladas that were frozen for dinner.
Vandy Camps, shout out.
and
sponsor, please.
you put them in the box.
Well,
And
Hey,
it caught fire.
Was she 8 years old, Mom?
I mean, probably.
all right. Well,
In fact, that's when they started putting on the box, remove from the box.
And take the plastic wrapper off, you
Oh
dum-dums.
God, that
Poke with a fork. All right.
All right, Mom. So one of many family dynamics.
Also, if you want to hear more about that birth story,
I do.
oh my
What,
God.
the John birth
Yeah,
story?
that.
I feel like I need the long version, Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that'll be on our Patreon.
Become a member, and we're going to get into it, Mom, because I have a lot of questions.
We have a lot of questions.
Thanks for coming in, Mom. That was awesome.
And be sure to like, subscribe, and comment on our podcast.
Join us again.
Thanks for listening.